Hello. Hello.
We don't see you.
Hi,
There we
everybody.
go. Hi. How you
Okay.
doing?
I am
Sorry, I
good.
didn't make
In the
it home
car. We're
on
in the
time.
car driving. So
Oh,
you're also in the car driving. Good. Okay, I'm just pulling it.
yes, sorry, I didn't make it on time.
That's fine. That's fine. Hold on. I had the book right out here. Yes, so let me move there. Wait. Where's our book? Here it is. Excellent. Make sure it's recording. Hello, everybody. Excellent. Yeah, we're all here. Stacy, Ruth.
Hello.
That's my car might make a noise. I'll turn the sound off, okay?
No problem. I'll
Happy
mute you.
birthday,
I muted
Stacy.
you.
Happy
Okay,
birthday, Stacy.
awesome. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy everybody got on time. I know a few people said they're going to be late who are normally on our group are going to be joining in or going to be watching the recording this week. So we miss you. We see you. We love you. And we look forward to hearing your thing. And the WhatsApp group. Okay, how is the sound, by the way? Thank you, by the way, for the haircut. Yeah, I got a haircut. Everybody can hear me, okay? Just let me know that the sound is good, please. Okay. Great. Stacy, is that a yes?
No, sorry. I clicked the wrong one.
The sound is good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So today we're starting with chapter 22. It's so exciting and sad that we are almost finished with this book. There's only 24 chapters. And then we're going to start Shar HaBitachon, the Gate of Trust again. So as we're winding down in the Mesilot Yesharim, the path of the just, we've talked about aligned action. We've talked about cleaning up our side of the street. We've talked about motivating ourselves. We've talked about continuing to cultivate self-awareness. We've talked about what it means to be a chassid, to be at another level of coming to this relationship, even of fearing God from a place of love. We've talked about defining each of these character traits. We've talked about minimalism and that you can't dance at two weddings at the same time, right? If we want to be present, then we can't have so many distractions that are pulling us towards physicality and being obsessive about this world when we also want to be focused on the next world. How do we act in relationships? We've done so much up to this point. And if you want to go back and review anything we've done till now, you can go head over to YouTube and re-listen to the classes. We've also seen incredible miracles happen personally for so many people in this group over the last year and a half to us as a nation. It's really been an incredible journey so far, and we're only getting started. So today we're going to start with the trait of humility. And humility is really nuanced because we tend to think of humility as not being showy, not being whatever, what we're not, instead of what we are, right? And so today we're going to start by defining it. What is it? What do we want to aspire to? Not what do we not want to aspire to? We've already discussed the repulsiveness of vanity. From that we infer the praiseworthiness of humility. Let's discuss humility graphically. Again, because remember when we talked about being obsessed with our own ego and not able to do good things from a place of wanting to be of service and of greater service and a vessel for good in the world, but wanting it to constantly be seen and validated and not be able to find that in a healthy way. We're still talking about humility in something that we don't want instead of something that we exactly want to be. The essence of humility is that a person should not attach importance to himself, which is the very opposite of vanity. The consequences of the humility are the opposite to those of vanity. Humility must be exercised in thought and deed, because acting humble without feeling humble is really deceitful and hypocritical. So let's see what Rabbi Twersky has to say. The trait of humility is given the utmost importance by all the ethicists, all our philosophers, starting with Moshe Rabbeinu, in the parshas that we're discussing right now of leaving Egypt. Many ethicists comment where the Rambam states that for every trait, virtue is between two extremes. Humility is the one exception. The virtue of humility is found to be at an extreme. Be very, very humble. It's very important that we understand what is meant by humility, because it's easily confused with inadequacy, worthlessness, and that's not a virtue. We alluded to this when we were discussing vanity, when we were discussing the ego, but the Ramchal finds it necessary to review this again, because again, we often miss the point when it comes to humility, myself included. And we feel like, we're worried that we're being in our ego, when really we need to be focused, passionately aligned in our actions. And humility is something we really want to have that loving, deep, bitachon, trusting relationship with Hashem. We have to be an open, beautiful vessel. And part of being an open and beautiful vessel is cultivating this character trait called humility. So let's come back and let's review. Bear in mind the essence of spirituality is truth, and that deviation from truth, not a virtue. Thus, spirituality for a person shouldn't delude himself and think he doesn't have strengths and character traits that God gave him. A person needs to be aware of his talents, his skills, his capacity, his strength, knowing all of the positive tools that are there, and still be utterly humble. So now, humble is not, everybody can do this better than me. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I have this skill. Feeling uncertain, feeling like trepidation even when going to do something or going to take action. That's not being humble. That's just being not confident. And maybe we need to spend more time. You're not sure what are the skills that we're good at, because sometimes maybe people around us don't appreciate the things that we're good at, and maybe we don't know all the things that we're good at. So it's such a fun journey as part of your path to humility to start to navigate, what am I good at? What are my strengths? What are my good character traits? Okay. A person must have a feeling of worth. We are children of God, and every single one of us has a divine soul that was created out of the very breath of God, his essence. Thus, we are all godly. Even if we've made mistakes, even if we've strayed from divine will, we never forfeit that divine, beautiful essence. And that awareness should stop us from feeling despair, feeling useless, or ever feeling worthless. And I elaborate this on my book, Let Us Make Man, distinguishing self-esteem from vanity and humility from unwanted feelings of inadequacy and worthlessness. Again, this is a crucial distinction. Here, as nowhere else in the lives of great tzaddikim, can be a beacon of light to guide us toward what true humility is and avoid the pitfalls of low self-esteem. The lives of tzaddikim can help us with humility in two ways. Firstly, the more we realize the great spiritual levels they reached in their total devotion to Torah and mitzvot, we realize how pathetically little we have achieved. But secondly, there are many accounts of profound humility of these great people. And if the enormity of their achievements, and they were humble and did not consider themselves deserving of honor and praise, we should also not have any claim to the latter. So here, I want to also put this into context for us as women. It's very hard to look and see and understand, maybe from our foremothers. There isn't as much written about all of their amazing, amazing character traits and of so many modern Rebbitzins. Now, Chabad has more because they wrote more about the Rebbitzins and aspire to be like them. But for the rest of us, there's not so many people that we can look at and be like, I am sure that this person is exactly somebody I want to role model. And so I think when it comes to humility, we should look in our own lives for anybody who we see has tremendous character, tremendous strength. And in that area, they are really selfless. They use all of their strength for others. and you watch them, and they're not just looking for accolades, and they're not looking for affirmation that they're really good at this or that they were really helpful all the time. And I think in this way, we could all find people who are personal examples of this character trait in our daily life. And that person might not be perfect. There might be other areas in which they struggle with humility. But if you can look around to people who inspire you and say, hey, she's really good at this, and she's also really humble. She knows she's good at this, but all of that action, all of that strength, all of that amazing things that she does, she really puts in the service of others to make the world a better place, to do Hashem's will. And I think we could all find an example of that and start to then look within ourselves and say, hey, where can I start with even one character trait of mine to fully develop it and use it and enjoy it and still be humble about it. So let's continue to discuss what is humility. The great Talmudist Rabbi Shlomo Luria lived above the vegetable store, whose proprietor was a God-fearing man. Assuming him to be sincere but unlearned, Rabbi Luria once awoke in the middle of the night and heard someone studying Talmud with the traditional melody. Curious, he followed the sound of the voice and found the proprietor studying Talmud in the wee hours of the morning. As he listened, he found him to be an accomplished scholar. Rabbi Luria confronted him about this, and the man pleaded with him and extracted a promise not to expose him. Shortly before Rabbi Luria's death, he called the community leaders together and revealed the secret of vegetable store proprietor's true abilities, instructing them to appoint him as the successor to the rabbi of the Lublin. This outstanding Torah scholar had shunned the honor he richly deserved. He wasn't meant to be a teacher, and he took up the spot when leadership was thrust on him. But his learning was for himself. And that great skill was between him and God. And God, we have Bitachon, right? We believe in infinite, small, big, in every way divine providence. So when God wanted to use his skill for the greater good, God made his skill known. But when his skill would have only been known and offered all of the pride and all of the kavod, all of the honor that would be due him in those circumstances, he said, unless you need, like, you don't need me. This is just like for you to let everybody know. Nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know. The renowned scholar and Kabbalist Rabbi Shlomo Mosravi came to Jerusalem from Yemen. He took a job as a caretaker of a shul, concealing his enormous erudition, skills, and learning. When Torah classes were held, he sat quietly reciting psalms, but he could not help overeating the discussions. Once all the scholars, including their instructor, were stumped by a difficult problem in the Talmud they were unable to resolve. Later that night, when everyone left, he was putting the books away. He wrote a note explaining the solution to the problem and inserted it in the instructor's book. This occurred several times, and no one knew who the mysterious scholar was. Okay, so again, in this same scenario, he had a skill that was needed, and he did the thing, and he did it anonymously. He didn't need everyone to know that he was the smartest guy in the room. There was no purpose to that honor. But of course, if Hashem wants something to be known, he will make it known. So what happens? The instructor's daughter, curious and anxious to get to the root of the mystery, keeps a close watch on the shul and noted the caretaker occasionally slipped a note into her father's volume. Only this was the way Rabbi Shlomo's outstanding Torah knowledge was revealed. Okay, now I want to, again, we have in all these stories, somebody is very curious. And even though we all know how important giving charity anonymous is, and even though all these people obviously wanted to do their good deeds anonymously, we are acknowledging human nature, that people are not all on that level of allowing someone to remain anonymous. They want to know. They want to know. And so when they're successful in finding things out, we know that there must be a hand of divine providence. And rather than judge them for their curiosity, recognize that we all can be overly curious, and we can all be looking all the time. And this is something that so easily see would happen, right? Like 100%. Many Torah luminaries had great difficulty accepting honor accorded to them with their position, yet could not avoid it because of the authority of the position and the respect which it commanded necessitated this. So when is it okay to have honor? When it is necessary for the authority of your position to be effective. We have a mitzvah, a commandment to honor a king, not because a king in and of himself is worthy of honor, but in order for him to successfully have the authority to command an army, to have taxes to pay for things that he needs, there has to be a respect and an honor in order for him to have authority. Why do we have a commandment to honor parents? Because they have to have authority in order to keep you safe, in order to be in the care of you, in order to execute their responsibilities. Often they were distressed by the honor accorded to them, and countless anecdotes testify to this. I think as women, this is something we can all relate to on a different level than in these stories of these rabbis as examples of so many times a woman's role is not given public accolade. She very, very often is using all of her skills to better her family, her community, her workplace, without seeking out constant honor. And this is, I think, something very special about women, and it's something that we are losing in a generation where women are told that they have to be more visible. They have to tell everybody every good thing they've ever done, because otherwise they're gonna never be as good as men and they're never gonna get ahead. And I think there's a lesson here to just think about, that there's a way to talk about our accomplishments when they're for a purpose of perhaps letting somebody know that this is something that would help them because it also helped some other person. Therefore, they should want to work with you because you want to help them, not because you're looking for everyone to know how great you are. You know, at work, we can show our boss, you know, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this for the company, not because we want the raise for how amazing and how much we are because of how much we deserve it. And no, God's giving us all the money that we need. But if we want greater authority, we want people to understand that we have responsibility and we want more power, or in order to improve the company, in order to improve our skills, then that's a perfect and legitimate, excellent example of how we can display very constructively all of our achievements for a purpose and trust. And when we know from that state of the gate of trust that God is making sure that we're going to get every single thing we deserve. So we are always safe to act humbly. We are never going to be missing out because we didn't act humbly. But at the same time, there's a difference between humility and lack of self-confidence. There's a difference between humility and knowing that you're somebody who can really make a difference in the company, and you want to, and you should go for it. And you should display why you're the best person for that job. Does anybody want to pause here and discuss this point? Anybody have a thought? You can write in the chat, raise your hand, unmute. Is this resonating with everybody? Thumbs up, high fives, let's see, hearts. Okay. The Chafetz Chaim had students, hold on. The Chafetz Chaim had students new to the Radin Yeshiva sleeping in his house until they were able to arrange for regular dorms. Once a student reported that one night he awoke and heard the great sage tearfully talking to Hashem. Talking to himself. Yisrael Meir, do you deserve the honor being given to you? Have you been fulfilled 1/100th of what a Jew is supposed to do? Why then do you deserve this honor? You're but a simple person and a frightful sinner. I was fortunate to make the acquaintance of the great Steipler Gaon with whom I kept correspondence. He pleaded with me not to address him with lavish honorary titles. The Talmud says, woe to a person who mistakenly assumed to be learned. This is a tzaddik, and many other tzaddikim were aware of his erudition in Torah, yet he did not feel this was grounds for being praised. In fact, he considered praise accorded to him groundless and caused him great distress. I think that we've all, in our many, many discussions over the last year, discussed trustworthy authority. Who are people in authority that we can trust? Rabbis we can trust. practicing developing that true trust in God, that God is trustworthy. And I think that when we want to look for a rabbi, a female leader or mentor who we can trust, I think it's somebody we'd all agree who has humility, who is constantly giving of all their skills, working on their skills, using their skills to benefit you or to benefit the world. And you have that sense of it's not about their ego, it's not about them. They have this sense of humility. You feel me? Okay, good. Humility is thought consisting of a person reflecting upon and recognizing that it's not his merit that for which he should have praise and honor by others. There is no person who's perfect. As Solomon says, no righteous person in the land does all that is good and does not sin. Regardless of how many amazing virtues we have, these faults should suffice us to prevent us from being vain. And I think, again, women versus men, we can be vain about different gifts than men can be vain about, right? And all of these things is recognizing that all of our amazing strengths are really gifts from God. God is constantly bestowing on us just a waterfall of blessings, whether it's our beauty, whether it's a beautiful singing voice, whether it's organizational skills naturally, whether it's a warm, compassionate heart, and you just have very strong motherly instincts, whether you're an amazing cook. A lot of these are skills, but a lot of them are also inborn talents. And sometimes we might not be vain about the same things a man might be vain about, but we can be vain about things that God blessed us with. We can be vain even about our health. Even on our health journey, all of a sudden we can have success and we can feel vanity about it. Instead of recognizing, I'm so proud of myself for my effort. I'm so much enjoying the result of the effort that God gave me. But the fact that I was successful and got any outcome was 100% God. And the more that we live with that bitachon, that sense of not unworthiness, but that sense of I'm just living in a pool of blessing that someone else has prepared for me. And I'm not focused on what I'm going to get because God has got me taken care of. I'm focused about what I can give. And I get this way too. Sometimes we get stuck in that moment of scarcity. Oh, but she has all this stuff. Or will I be okay in the future? Or how will I retire? Or how are my kids going to be? How are my grandkids going to be? What's going to happen? How is Mashiach going to come? What's all the next thing in the world that's going to happen? What's going to be the next step? And we get all this future tripping. Instead of focusing on that appreciation, that gratitude of that like pool that we live in, of all of our personal character traits, all of the blessings, our skills, capabilities, tools, resources that we have, and knowing I don't need someone else's resources. If I don't have them, I don't need them. If there's a resource I want and I don't currently have, I highly recommend the book. It's All the Same to Me. It's a fantastic book that by Moshe Gertz, and it's discussing wanting things without not wanting. I want more money, but I don't not want to have what I have right now. I'm good if it happens. I'm good if it doesn't. I want more. It's totally safe to want. God's constantly giving. He wants to hear what I want, but I'm not so focused on, I want more money, but I really don't want not more money. Like, chill with that. And that also comes from that place of humility, that place of bitachon. Okay. Let us suppose an individual thinks of himself as having very few sins, although this is probably due to an inaccurate accounting. Would someone appear at a social event in a fine suit or dress that has several stains on it? Would we accord honor to someone who appears in public in such a garment? Our sins are stains on our person. And since we undoubtedly have abundance of these, rather than just a few, how can we consider ourselves deserving of praise and honor? There's a difference between gratitude and appreciation and praise and honor. We are constantly saying, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Praise, praise, praise to God. But we can have gratitude and appreciation for ourselves and for other human beings as well as God. But praise is for someone who is sinless. And thank God, not only these great rabbis, you're not alone, they have sins too. So instead of looking at it like, wow, these people who are so much better than me, they have sins and they don't, no, I also have sins. I'm just like them. So the same way that they can have tremendous self-esteem, tremendous confidence, tremendous, everyone knows how erudite and wonderful they were and good people, etc., they had sins too. So there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken that I have sins. I'm constantly a work in progress. But praise and honor is something that we save parents because we're practicing for God, kings because we're practicing for God and God himself. And the older we get in the Shar Bitachon, right, we start out with just thinking about our mother and our food source, then we think about our father, and then we get to ourselves. I'm so great. But we move on and we recognize that everything we have and everything we are is from God. Okay. I've often thought that the worst punishment that can be inflicted on a person on Judgment Day is to show him a video, a playback of his life. If he's deserving of an even greater punishment, an audience would be involved to watch it along with him. Would we not bury our heads in shame if we were to witness the play-by-play video of our entire life and all of our mistakes? If someone were to witness this play-by-play and know every single thing about us, if we will be honest with ourselves, we will admit that the only way we can make a claim to honor and praise is that people don't know the whole truth about us. How can a person be vain if he knows that it is all based on a lie? Now, this is something I have to tell you guys, personally, was very traumatic for me growing up in the school system that I did. This concept that if anybody really knew me, I would feel ashamed. That is, I just want to clarify so you don't mistake it the way I heard it and mistook it in my youth. That is not what he's saying here. Hashem really knows you inside and outside, every little bit of your heart, every single small part of you, and he's not ashamed of you. In terms of vanity, in terms of being looked at as somebody worth being praised, if we are saying that God is worthy of praise and we praise and honor God, in this week's parsha, Paro, the entire time hardens his own heart because he can't understand that he refuses to accept that he is not a God like God is a God. And only then, when he has zero option but to see the concrete, clear difference and live with that dissonance, God says, no, now I'm hardening your heart. Now I'm hardening your heart until final plague. He refused, and then God allowed him to have that fake belief that he in his kingship was equal with God. And it says that's why God takes kings to task so clearly, because we do have to praise and honor them. When we had kings, they were held to such a tremendous high standard of humility and how they had to behave and how many laws there are specifically and only for kings, in order that they should understand, yeah, you're a king, but you're nothing. You're a king, but I'm the king of kings. Like, keep it down. Don't get vain about it. You're still my servant. But for us to practice honoring them was to practice and understand and have a physical representation of honoring God. Okay. The factor most responsible for vanity is the pride in one's intelligence, right? For men. For me, also, since thinking the rational mind is the distinctive human feature. A wise man never erred, misused his rational mind? No. What, right? We've lived through the time of the Holocaust where the Germans, who were the most, intelligent, intellectual people, right? Did horrible things. What grounds are there then for being vain about your intelligence? We live in a time of neurodivergence. You think that just because you think the way the mainstream used to think, you're better? Sorry. Nope. Even if one were extremely wise and never made a mistake, is this any reason for vanity? Should a bird be vain because of its capacity to fly? No, it came from God. Or an ox because of its strength to pull a plow? Wisdom is natural, God-given capacity in order to do his will. How can you take pride in what was given to you in order to do a job? Rather, one should make certain that he shares his wisdom and other talents with those who are in need of them, because God gives everybody some traits and other people some specific needs that are meant to match up perfectly with other people's strengths. You have money, there's somebody who's specifically not given money just so that you can give that money to them, because you can't be a giver if there's nobody to receive. And that is true of our knowledge, that is true of our compassion, that is true of our cooking, that is true of our kindness, that is true of every single talent and strength. That's even true of beauty. If you're an artist or a creative, even physical beauty brings pleasure to somebody else. It is not really only for your own pleasure. Can be enjoyed. People who are wise enjoy learning, but it's what they do with that wisdom that matters. In a famous letter to his son, the Ramban states that one should never feel superior to others. There are always those who are wiser than you, and you must respect and feel humble in their presence. If you are wiser than others, you must realize that their mistakes are more easily forgiven than yours because they lack your intelligence. Therefore, they are probably more virtuous than you. The Hasidic master Rabbi Chaim of Chernovitz said the Torah states that Moses was the most humble of all men on earth. How could this be? Were we not aware that his incomparable knowledge and prophetic powers that would never be duplicated? He alone in all of mankind, ever in all of history, spoke alone to God. Rabbi Chaim asserts that Moses' reason that his great capacity came because he was taken up to heaven in the company of angels and afforded an intimate contact with the divine presence. If anyone else of lesser spiritual value than him had been exposed to the celestial phenomena, had he not been created in the exact soul and kind that he was, had he not had all the privileges and gifts and character traits that God gave him, maybe they would have made better use of him and would have reached a higher level than he did. But all of us are unique, and so we'll never know that someone else with our exact situation, circumstances, traits would have done better. So we don't need to compare ourselves to others, because no matter how well somebody else is doing, they don't have your exact challenges or your exact strengths. I think we're in a day where we have such struggle with low self-esteem. We have to hear this, because with low self-esteem can also, like we said, come this fake ego vanity to overcompensate. And so this is so important. But at the same time, don't let the Yetzer Hara misuse this to crush your self-esteem more. The Talmud says, wherever one finds the greatness of God, he also finds humility. True greatness and humility are inseparable. Those who allow their wisdom and achievements to result in vanity are deficient in wisdom. Furthermore, the Talmud says, whoever is humble, God elevates him. Like we said, God makes sure that the right curious person finds out about him at the right time. But whoever is arrogant, God lowers him in that right moment. Humility is not only a virtue, it is also the key to clarity of thought. For as long as there is an ego factor, one is preoccupied with oneself. Where there is self-interest, one's thought process are influenced in that direction, right? We can't really clean up our side of the street when we're still worried about what's in it for me. And it's for this reason that Rav Pinchas ben Yair placed humility on the ladder of spirituality only after abstinence, only after, when not only do we not need everything we don't have, but we see that we even already have more than enough. We can even abstain from a fifth cookie that we already have access to, right? And the kiosk, being able to clean up emotionally our side of the street. This achievement of which would eliminate self-interest, at last in the physical sphere, and allow for the beginnings of the development of humility, which lies primarily in the intellectual sphere. It is for this reason that the Talmud says that many halachic disputes between the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai, the decision went for Hillel, because they were more humble. How does humility affect the correctness of the halacha? Because a humble person is devoid of the ego influence and is far more objective and more cognizant of truth. Indeed, the father of this school, Hillel himself, is described in the Talmud as a paragon of humility and likened unto Moses. It is therefore a characteristic of Hillel to say, humility can elevate me, but vanity will depress me. Let us make man. I elaborated on the distinction between vanity and self-esteem. I alluded to this in an earlier book. I mention it here only because it was Hillel, the most humble human, second only to Moses, who said, if I am here, all is here. Self-effacement and humility are not incompatible with honest self-appraisal. A practical example of how one's ego can be obstructive. Let me quote an observation of a highly accomplished professional person who recovered from severe alcoholism. There is no way I could have recovered in my own efforts. I know God did it for me. He was always trying to do it for me, but I kept getting in his way. What was the recovery program accomplished is to let me get out of the way that God could do his thing without my obscuring him. A humble person can recognize his achievements, but he also knows where they come from. Let's now turn to humility in conduct. One's speech, one's walk, one's movements should reflect humility. A person should speak gently. The words of the wise are gently and easily accepted. One should speak respectfully, avoiding insulting language. One who shames his friend is a heartless person. The Ramchal is providing not only the teaching of Hasidic, but also a lesson in effective communication. One of my patients is a high-powered executive whom I treated for psychosomatic chest pain. In the course of the treatment, I discovered that someone in his office, at an office, he was a tyrant and he would scream at his subordinates. And during executive meetings, I used relaxation techniques to help him subdue those outbursts and learn to deliver a message in a gentle manner. I pointed out to him that the content of his message was good, but when he began shouting and berating others, they became defensive and they tuned him out. So this message never got across. He gradually changed his technique and the atmosphere in the office underwent a change. One day I called to change an appointment and said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's a different man and a delight to work for. That's what the secretary said. It's thus that not only in the interest of spirituality, one should be humble in speech, but also for self-serving reasons. Wink, wink. Because we're not all at the place of humility yet, but it's worth developing. The same way while we're developing trust in God, we're always reminded, yes, of the physical benefits, because like that curious person, we all still struggle with self-interest and will every single day that we're here. It's part of being human. So if we can align positive, spiritual-based, values-based self-interest, it's going to help us have motivated, aligned action and zrees us with that energy in order to take action. And then we're going to be able to have the confidence to be successful. Just checking where we are in the chapter. Okay. Anybody have a comment here, a story, a question, something that's resonated with him they want to take a pause? Ladies, anybody?
No, sorry.
Is it good so far? Are you with me? Are we all here?
Yeah, I'm here with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Like we feeling like really we're in it. Should I keep going?
I just got home, so I can concentrate a bit better now.
Okay. Let's talk about this idea of your gait, your walk. If people strut around like peacocks, trying to impress others with their importance, would only realize how absurd they look. And that instead of impressing others with their importance, they convey an attitude of foolishness. Perhaps they would avoid such postures. The same is true of people who insist that they be given this seat or near the dignitaries at an event. Those who arrange the seating generally say, don't forget, we've got to put Mr. X up front. You know how he gets if he doesn't get what he thinks he deserves. What a pompous idiot. Since many people have at one time or another served on an arrangement committee, there may be paradoxically not think too highly of those people who are always seated up front. Again, over and above Hasidus, the Ramchal is teaching us behavior that in the end also works to our advantage. Humble conduct includes being able to bear an insult without responding in anger. Whom does God forgive? Those who overlook offenses against them. Those who are insulted and do not return the insult, of them it is said, those who love God are like the sun at its greatest strength. So we mentioned this also in the Shar Bitachon, that bad things that happen to us, even from other people, Hashem allows. And when we get angry at the other person who insulted us, when they're 100% wrong or not, or anything, especially if it's public, it says that God will forgive all of our sins. He will raise us up Because in that moment, we have an opportunity to practice profound humility and recognize that for some reason that we don't understand, God allowed this difficult thing to happen to me. And now I have this moment of potential greatness of how I'm going to respond. This week we had the story of a Gam who came back, who found a prayer book in Gaza and all of the amazing mitzvot that she kept to strengthen her commitment and her belief that God put her exactly where she was and that he was then going to help her. And she was committed to that relationship with him in the worst human circumstance that we can imagine. And we see these stories again and again and again when we have stories from the Holocaust of people who in tiny, small ways were subjected to embarrassment, insult, physical harm, and recognized there was a source and there must be an ultimate good. And I'm going to cleave closer to this source so I can be closer to the good that's going to come instead of fear. And it's something I can only be inspired by and motivated by to work on in myself, because I know I have a hard time when I get insulted. I think especially with the people who are closest to us, we want to stand up for ourselves. We want to be setting boundaries. We don't want to be a doormat. And to recognize that, like, we could be like, oh, ouch. Like, I don't like how you said that. Or we can get really defensive and angry and all those things, which, I suffer from as much as anybody else. And it's really important to hear that message and take it in and start to practice and then think about it in the context of our everyday interaction, socially, emotionally, in our families, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, person. And you feel like, yeah, but I should be there. I should be important. And all of a sudden, maybe you're overlooked for some reason. Okay, I have an opportunity. How am I going to get closer to Hashem? The Talmud and the ethical writings abound with anecdotes of tzaddikim who bore insult in silence. This requires a great deal of restraint, and one must learn to control the impulse to strike back. But let's think a moment. If we act impulsively when provoked, how is our behavior different than an animal? It's our instinct. It's our flight or fight response, of which we use our knowledge and our intelligence. And this allows us to elevate ourselves above that initial fight, flight, freeze, appease response. Here again is the practice of chassidut, optimal behavior, being able to overcome the initial response more quickly, aspire to it, even at least mindful awareness, seeing when we're responding from that behavioral animal place, and the antagonistic might walk away. In addition, bystanders are apt to be drawn in, taking sides, resulting in more lashon hara and resulting in all kinds of things. This is what will happen if we keep our silence. The antagonist remains with his offensive remarks. He doesn't feel victimized, and if there were any observers, they think poorly of him already and highly of you. Not only will there not be a melee, but it's likely that after a while, the one who offended you will realize his foolishness and then be able to call and apologize. Let's also remember that none of us are free of offenses against God. The divine system of justice operates on a principle of dealing with a person according to his own behavior. When we are quick to forgive others, then we will merit God to very quickly forgive us. Humility includes despising positions of dominance and fleeing from honor. Remember, we've talked about before around Yom Kippur about the difference between authority and dominance. Everybody hates feeling dominated. But even people who say they don't like to be told what to do appreciate an authority. In fact, most people look for an authority. You want to take a vacation, you want the utmost authority to help you plan the best possible vacation. But you don't want someone to dominate you and tell you exactly how your vacation better be. The Talmud says, whoever pursues honor, honor will flee from him. The position of lordship is actually a position of servitude, right? We wish all of our politicians knew this. Woe unto the leader who buries his possessors. We may envy people who have achieved positions of power, but it's a foolish jealousy. Even if the glory of the position just does provide one with a sense of well-being, it's not really much different than the euphoria of a drug addict from narcotics. A good feeling is effervescent, one constantly wants more, and one is never satisfied. The consequences are generally unpleasant. People who pursue positions of authority, and again, here he's using authority to say dominance, have very low self-esteem, and that they are in such desperate need to have others acknowledge them as being worthwhile. The greatest leader, Moses, was the most humble of men, and he struggled to avoid the mantle of leadership. We also know he struggled too much, and God said, fine, I'll send Aaron with you, but it would have been better if you would have recognized that it was yours to do in the first place. Go back downstairs. Right? I'm sorry, hold on one second. Okay, Stacy, what do you want to share with us?
No, I just, actually, I have a question. Can I share this recording with a guy?
Why not?
Okay,
Yeah, it's just Torah.
okay. Thank you.
What part of it resonated that you think is valuable? So we can all kind of like.
So when a person reacts, what you said was that you're operating from your animal soul, right? I just feel like, it's so, there's that pause, we're supposed to pause before react. We're supposed to pause when we think something, all of a sudden, we're supposed to pause, right? And so really, when you don't pause, you're operating out of instinct and your animal soul, your lower self. And it's ugly, frankly. It's very, very ugly. And when you operate from your godly soul, you're just so much more beautiful. And that resonates with me deeply. And then also the part where, I don't know, just a reminder, when we're quick to forgive others, Hashem forgives us too. Thanks.
My pleasure. And Rabbi Tursky and the Ramchal. Okay. We were here. If what you are looking for is peace and tranquility, right? This is what we are all here for. Menuchat hanefesh, peace and tranquility of the soul. Do not seek to be a master over others. The more people who are subordinate to you, the greater is your burden, since you carry ultimate responsibility for their actions, most of which you cannot control. This is also something I'm going to remind you guys from the Shar Bitachon, which is also a preview of what's coming next in the schools. Shar Bitachon, again, take 2, is that we think, I want to be the CEO. I want to be the billionaire. Well, when you're a billionaire, that means that you are holding the income of many, 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 many people in your hands. And it's your job to be distributing that well. And it's your job to be guarding that money and taking care of it so that it can be distributed well. And that's a lot of work. And that's all on you. And you can't control what so many other people are going to do. So be careful what you wish for. You're not going to have any more pleasure from your money than you would have if you hadn't been craving being the top dog because of your vanity, because we want to be the top dog. We want to be seen as valuable. And when we struggle with needing everyone else to see us as valuable, it's because we're struggling to really believe that what we see in ourselves is valuable.
Right. Correct. And then the other thing that really resonated with me that I just want to repeat for this recording is that for myself, so I plan to go back and watch it as well, is that, we do not want to be dominated. We do not want to be dominated. No one gets to dominate you. Even if you find a behavior in someone else that you don't like, it's not your prerogative to change them, to say something, frankly. It's not your business. It's right. It's like, it's your stuff to work out. What is it within you that is causing your trigger? And work it out. And don't put it on others, because that's also a form of your animal soul. That's also part of your animal soul.
Here he talks about again and again when we talked about, oh, but we're supposed to hate sin so much. He's like, yeah, when you're free of sin, that's the time where that great love of God is going to overflow. And you're just going to also see so much good in that person. You're going to be like, that behavior, it's not so much better than that. Like when you
Right.
see this is dressed like impeccably, and all of a sudden you see them like in their pajamas and like not even good pajamas, and you're like, oh my God, sweetheart, what happened to you? Like, how can I?
Yeah.
That's how we want to see so much good in somebody, that when they act from their animal soul, from their poor self, that we're like shocked. We're like, oh my gosh, of course I'm going to say something like, obviously something is wrong. How can I help you? Not, oh my God, what happened to her? Right? Like out of that judgment, criticism state, it's like, look how gorgeous you are. Look how you always take care of yourself. Like, obviously you're going through something. Like, how can I help? And it takes a lot to cultivate that. So like, like you said, don't be in such a rush to point out everybody else's failures. Let's work here on valuing ourselves enough to see ourselves as better, so that we can see when we're not acting in alignment with that. It's like, you're better than that. Come on, sweet. Like, you got this, but saying it to ourselves.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're on the bottom of page 295. Okay. My responsibilities as a director, I work with a large psychiatric service, and we're more than enough. When I received a federal grant to expand the services and open a large community mental health center, we added a huge staff. At the close of one busy day, the hospital administrator met me and said, "You look exhausted. You should hire an assistant." My response was, "One more assistant and I quit." The less responsibility you carry on the actions of others, the happier you are. Glory and power are indeed a lure, but they are very much like quicksand. And the Talmudic statement is absolutely true. Woe unto lordship, for it buries the person who possesses it. Another aspect of humility is being respectful to others. The Talmud says, who is an honorable person? One who gives honor to others. Always be the first to greet them. We are told that Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students who perished because they did not act respectfully to one another. It is questionable that humility removes many obstacles from a person's unquestionable, that humility removes many obstacles from a person's life and brings him closer to much that is good. He is little affected by worldly affairs, and his company is enjoyable. He does not become angry, nor does he get drawn into arguments. Fortunate is one who has achieved this trait. Right? How different Torah values are from secular values. The average person undoubtedly thinks that an honorable person is one who receives a lot of honor for others, whereas the Torah attitude is the reverse, one who gives honor to others, gives honor to God. Similarly, the world considers a wealthy person to have accumulated a great fortune, whereas the Torah attitude is that true wealth consists of being satisfied with what you have. And we have to know that so much of that secular culture, as they're calling it, has fallen into and been confused with Jewish culture. And yet our Jewish values, we've done a good job also disseminating that into the world. And there's so many secular people who have this Jewish value and are confused by observant Jews who are chasing after money and honor. And so great job, all of us, for giving out this value to the whole world. And now we need to just clean up our side of the street and make sure that we didn't accidentally absorb a misplaced secular honor on this. And it's very natural. I have to tell you, I found myself in a position this week, seeing it happen and feeling a literally subconscious drive to elevate somebody in my mind because they were very wealthy and successful, even though there were this other like over somebody who isn't, who has so many other good character traits. And it took truly an intellectual awareness, right? And then just working through, why are you feeling a pull to treat this person differently than this person because of this thing that's not your value? Where is that coming from? Okay, maybe that's part of my animal soul, right? Maybe that's an instinct that females have to respect power differently or whatever, but I don't have to be guided by that. I had my actual behavior, and I can check in with that trigger, even though it didn't come out, and clean that up on my side of the street in my own head. And so we're given these opportunities all the time in our daily life to start with that awareness and then go through the process over time of like cleaning it up and cleaning it up and cleaning it up and seeing, wow, some of these things in our society really are deep, The Ramchal cites the tragic episode of Rabbi Akiva's disciples, and we commemorate this unfortunate event every year by observing various mourning practices in the weeks between Passover and Shavuos, the time period during which they died. Why this practice? The teacher that even people of great scholarship may be vulnerable to acting with a lack of respect for others. It is unfortunate that so very relatively little of the lives of our sages has been preserved for prosperity. But whatever we do have is precious. Rabbi Akiva Eger, in a letter to his son who edited his manuscripts for responsible publication, writes, "You will see among my correspondence letters from people who identify themselves as having learned in my yeshiva. Do not refer to any of them as my students. I've never called anyone my student because how do I know that I have not learned more from them than they learned from me?" I have to tell you, this class, I feel I learned more teaching this class than probably any of you will ever get from listening to the recordings or in the live class. Really true. Rabbi Yisrael Salant, one of the greatest Torah luminaries of this generation, was always the first to greet any Torah scholar who came to town, in spite of the protocol that the guest who's visiting greet the rabbi of the city first. Rabbi Yisrael said, "In no way can I make the sense of business the one who visits me first. What is this? Some kind of childish game, right? Oh, I can't invite her for Shabbos again. She hasn't invited me back. Oh, I can't give this person another gift. They haven't given me something." Right? All these kind of social rules that decide who's getting the honor, and we have to take turns. You can give freely. You can give freely because we have Bitachon and we know God is taking care of us. Okay. And that is the end of chapter 22. Anybody else? I know a few people had to leave a little bit early today. I know you guys have finished the recording and we missed those of you who weren't here, but everybody else who wasn't able to come on video, I know a lot of people driving today. We loved your comments in the chat and in general. Anybody else have anything, the final word they want to add to today's class?
Shkoyach, I have to go also. Shavua tov. Toda. Bye.
And Esther, also have a wonderful week. And Stacy, so great to see you.
So great to see you, Lily. You make my week. Thank you.
Pleasure. Esther, have a wonderful week as well. Any last words or thought on today or audio?
Oh, she's off.
Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.